What's up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA. This is episode number 173. I'm Jarrod here with Paul.
What up?
Coming to you from Las Vegas. Today, we're just going to be having a free-form conversation about all the crazy shit that's been going on across the combat sports world. Before we get to that, grab your stash, fire that shit up. Let's talk about the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
All right, so this week we have a real solid strain, I feel. It's going to be called Motor Breath. It's a cross of Chem Dog with San Fernando Valley OG.
SFG.
So it's going to have a pretty solid fuel type.
I know you don't like that too much, but I've always digged the gassy flavors. I don't know why.
I mean, I don't
Diesel
dislike it.
fuel. I like Chem Dog a lot. Chem Dog 91 is a great strain.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little citrusy on the end too. I like that. That's pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah.
I keep wanting to call it Motor Breath instead of Motor Head instead of Motor Breath.
I think that's a licensing thing.
Yeah, probably.
Like, oh, Motorhead, huh? Motherfucker, you're going to have to pay us.
That's nice. We got a couple backup strains too left over from prior shows. A little bit of the Tangerine Dream, a little bit of
Red Sangria.
Red Sangria.
Got
hash.
some Blue Dream batter here in the
What is that tool you got right there?
It's kind of like a pen with a fucking atomizer in it. I don't know.
I used to have a nice atomizer, but it broke like all things.
What, your packs? What? I didn't know that. I was actually going to ask you about that before the show, too. It's like, I wonder what happened to the pack.
I have another one now.
Oh, yeah.
I just,
Yeah, because don't they come with, a warranty?
Yeah, I haven't sent it back, but then, I got my mom's.
Oh,
so
sick.
Yeah, she didn't use it a whole lot, so.
Yeah. Is it the one that has, you could do weed and wax in?
Yeah, it was the exact same one I had, except it was silver instead of black. So you can do weed, you can do shatter, wax, all that.
Because one time I ran into this guy, just like at a random party, we're all smoking. He's like, oh, yeah, load up my packs. And I was like, oh, I have some wax and throw it in there. He's like, oh, no, this one only does weed.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd even get that one.
Yeah. It's like,
I've heard of that, but I think those are the earlier ones, like the packs 2.
I think it's the 2.
Yeah.
Because it was a little different, size-wise, too. But yeah, that sucks.
Well, Binoid is our little sponsor for this Weed of the Week segment. You can get some good deals on CBD products and Delta-9 THC products. If you go to our website, swatmma.com, and you click on that little cool stuff button, you can help out the show and save 15% on your first order. So check that out. Let's go ahead and talk a bit about some sports while we fire up one of these joints here, huh?
All right. I think probably the best way to maybe start this off, let's talk about last night. We had Canelo Alvarez defending his title against Jamal Charlo, which did not go well.
I mean, everybody's praising Canelo's performance. I was just like, whatever.
Yeah, I kind of just saw that coming.
I mean, this was a fight nobody really asked for. I didn't really think he was going to give him any trouble to begin with, and there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Charlo brothers. Don't get me wrong. I think they're great. It's just...
And that's kind of where I feel like it's all kind of lost in translation here, too, is you don't really lose that much shine on his end because you lost going up and trying to, achieve greatness. But then on Canelo's side, too, we knew Charlo was good enough to maybe not beat him, but knew Canelo was never going to, he was tough enough to go the distance with Canelo. And I feel like there's just nothing good on Canelo's side for his performance in this fight. Yeah, he did what he literally was supposed to do. It was almost like a line him up, knock him down kind of situation more than it was oh, this is a storied part of Canelo's career that he, was able to beat Charlo. Everyone kind of knew going in that Charlo had very slim chance of getting out of there with a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sums it up perfectly. I mean, I don't have much to add to that. It was, I guess it showed us that he hasn't really lost a step. There was a little bit of a question about that, given his past couple performances. Is this the one where Canelo actually loses a step and can be beat? No.
So where do you think he goes from here?
I don't know. I hope they don't do the fight with his brother. I think that's lame.
Yeah. I think
The
it
Crawford
had,
situation could happen possibly if Terrence were to really take that big of a jump in weight,
yeah.
which would be interesting. But still, even if he did, it's only interesting if he beats him, because if Crawford were to lose, you're like, yeah, he just jumped up like 14 pounds.
Yeah. I think it's even more than that.
It might even, it probably is.
Because I think it's 168 from 147.
Yeah, it's 21.
Yeah. And like I said, and I kind of feel that same vibe out of this. It's like Charlo moved up all the way from fucking, was it 54?
He gives up his belts. Yeah,
Did he give his belts
they
up?
stripped him as soon as the fight started. He was stripped.
What? That's whack.
They kept it engaged until the bell sounded, so that
Mhm.
they could do the undisputed versus undisputed marketing plan.
Yeah,
But then immediately he lost his shit.
that's whack.
Yeah.
He's not 54 because he's a super lightweight, isn't he?
I can't remember, honestly.
Yeah, me either.
I mean, I watched the Charlo brothers, but I'm not like this big enough fan where I sometimes I
Weight
even get them a
classes
little
in
mixed
boxing
up.
sometimes
You know what I mean?
confuse me too.
And
Like
old boy
the
hasn't fought. His
super
brother hasn't
light.
fought in so fucking long.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Is this originally was supposed to be his brother, and they kind of marketed it at the end, like you were saying, like where it's like, oh, well, this fight was tough for his brother, but now his older or not older brother, but his bigger brother's gonna come in and defend it. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I really give a fuck to see that.
I don't know if there's anybody else I want to see Canelo fight other than, I mean, who's the old boy beat him, Bivol?
Bivol, yeah. Better beat it or Bivol are the only two I would really be up to watch.
Dude, Better Beef would kill that motherfucker. I mean, I'm sorry. There comes a point when you can't
would
take
not.
punches from somebody that big.
He would not kill him though. I think
I think
Canelo's
he'd, I
head
think
movement.
he'd KO him.
You think so? Damn.
And not because he's so much of a better boxer, just because at some point he's going to connect. And you're talking about just somebody that's just a lot bigger. I mean, what is that, 175?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a man who fought Floyd Mayweather, you know?
Yeah. Hmm. I don't know. I don't think he would knock him out. I think Canelo's head movement would be like, I think he'd land and maybe get some good shots in, but I just don't see a world where Canelo gets knocked out by really anybody.
All right, well, let's move on from Canelo because it's kind of up in the air. We did get some big fucking news in the heavyweight division, though, as
Yeah.
Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk has finally been signed.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be happening in late December or early January, supposedly, in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Same place hosting the Ngannou fight. There's been some people saying like, oh, Ngannou's being overlooked here. He's not, though. They're not fighting for Fury's belt, even if he were to lose.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect the fact that they can do this undisputed fight next. I mean,
But
yes, in reality, it would affect it because I'm sure there would be some sort of rematch or some shit talking or whatever, but they could still technically move on.
the only pathway I see, like with what you're saying, is a situation where, yeah, Francis wins, and then Fury still goes on and fights Usyk for the unification bout, and then maybe it's like the WBC or some other organization that he has one of the belts makes him like a mandatory
Mm-hmm.
because they want their piece of the bread too. Because I feel like that's what kind of sucks a lot of times with these like boxing super fights is sometimes they're not really, the stakes aren't always there. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I felt last night. Like same thing I was talking about with the Canelo fight. Like Canelo won, but the stakes weren't really there. Like if Francis wins, like it's sick, but the stakes aren't really there. It's more of a blast off into stardom than like a blast off into like a historic boxing career.
Right. Did you see any tape from, let's shift to the Ngannou Fury for a moment, from the Ngannou Fury, the press conference that Fury did, or Ngannou did out here? He did some pad work and a bit of an open workout.
Oh, did he?
Well, I
see-
mean, he didn't look good, bro.
He didn't?
No.
Interesting.
Like, he looked so bad that Fury's dad decided to make an issue of it and went out talking about how that shit was embarrassing and Fury's going to knock him out in the first round if that's what he's coming with. And then he was like, I hope that shit was a joke. Like, I hope you guys are, like, playing possum with that nonsense.
Yeah.
And he's really not that far off. It didn't look good, bro.
I didn't
Now,
see
pad
it.
work doesn't mean shit because Ronda Rousey used to light them pads up.
Yeah.
But
And I don't know. When you have an ultimate equalizer, like things sometimes is sloppy. Like if you look at Deontay Wilder's kind of another one who's like that, where like he's not the most technical boxer, but when you have just like that one punch that can change, you know, the course of history, sometimes having sloppy pad work doesn't really matter, you know. At least at heavyweight.
Well, let's assume that the most likely outcome is that Fury's going to
Yeah.
school him here in the ring. And then I would imagine they're not going to do a December fight because we're talking October 27th. It depends on how quickly he dispatches Francis.
When is the Francis fight?
It's October 28th.
Oh, I thought it was in December.
27th, perhaps. No, it's coming up in a matter of a couple weeks here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
4 weeks.
I'm tripping.
Right,
I thought it was in December. For
less
some
than
reason.
4.
Yeah, I think a December fight would be a little early unless he just goes out and like puts him out in like 2 rounds or something.
You know, he's looking at this obviously as a tune-up.
Yeah.
How about him versus Usyk after the Dubois fight?
I was
though?
just gonna say that. I was just gonna say, how do you feel about Usyk since the Dubois fight?
I think he was exposed in that fight. I think he should have lost that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was clearly a legal punch.
Yeah.
And I speak as somebody I was a boxer, albeit amateur, but irregardless, I love boxing. I've been in the ring. I've been in the Golden Gloves. I know the tricks you do with your fucking. That was the belt. That was not below the belt line punch. It was on the belt line.
Yeah.
He got knocked down and out from that shit. Now, would he have beaten an 8 count and stood up? Most likely.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he would have gotten swarmed as well. There wouldn't have been a ref there. He would have been swarmed while he was all fucked up.
That's the thing
So-
too, is you have to take into account the idea that they gave him 5 minutes to recover because they said it was a groin strike.
Exactly. And the ref stepped in immediately. There was no follow-ups there. There
Yeah.
would have been follow-ups. So
Yeah,
it's to me
it's tough.
at the best he was exposed with that as not being
Tough.
nearly as tough as you might initially think.
It's maybe not even a toughness thing.
Not
I
a
think
toughness,
I think
but-
size comes into it as well.
Yeah, I think that I've always thought that Tyson Fury was going to win this fight, and I think that he could possibly win it with a knockout because Tyson can do some nasty body work even on a smaller man.
Yeah. So, is Tyson Fury still training with the Kronk guys, or did he go back to that one dude? 'Cause
I
was
am not
hearing-
certain, frankly.
I was hearing like back and forth, like
They've been moving around. I really don't know.
yeah, because that version of him is I think is the one nobody could beat. But I don't know.
The Kronk version or the before with that with the one
The
that
Kronk
one white
version,
dude.
I would say.
Yeah.
Although both are effective because Tyson Fury ultimately has great boxing skills. The use of his size and like his length and everything like that is just so fit for that style that I feel like if he goes back to that old style, those are really the only opportunities he would maybe have to lose. Because when he goes that like more defensive, pop the jab, wear you out kind of like, you know, because that's kind of how he fought the first half of his career. You know, made you look stupid, fucking pump the jab in your face till you couldn't take it anymore. But now he's more like sitting down on his punches and trying to take you out. And I feel like that would really be the difference in the fight with him and Usyk is if he puts, sits down on his punches and really lays some on Usyk. I don't know how many of those he can really take at that size, you know, because at what Usyk probably comes in weighing max like 225, like max. Like max, like, and that's if he's like is legitimately just like I'm putting weight on for this, but like even then he's still outweighed by 60 plus pounds.
According to the internet, Sugar Hill Stewart is still Tyson Fury's
Okay.
trainer, so he's still with those
Good.
guys.
Because I did hear like there was a little bit of talk online for a second that said that he was bringing Ben Davison back in. That's his name, right? Ben Davison.
Yeah, Ben Davison.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you though that I think that Dubois fight really exposed some holes that maybe a fighter like Tyson Fury would just be able to exploit.
The only way any of this changes is if the Ngannou fight happens and the shocking upset were to occur, or Fury comes out and just looks like shit. Like he looks out of shape.
Yeah.
And he looks sloppy. Because
Yeah.
Fury,
Because Usyk's very technical.
with this fight being signed now afterwards, Fury should be taking this Ngannou fight quite seriously, not so much as the threat that Ngannou brings, but as a tune-up and preparation for the Usyk fight. So he's going to want to come out and be as sharp as possible.
And not only that, avoid major cuts.
Absolutely.
Like least amount of time he's in there, the better.
Right.
Because that's kind of what we saw. Remember back, what was it, the Wall-In fight, where he had that real bad cut on his eye, and literally almost had it stopped.
No, we're not going to hear like some of the nonsense after the Floyd fight that we heard in this fight. And I'm talking specifically about the nonsense where they said Floyd carried Conor for 10 rounds to keep it entertaining. That's not happening in this fight no matter what. Fury's not going to try to extend this out to provide fun and entertainment.
Yeah, no.
I don't think it'll be over in the first round. I think it probably goes 3. And I think that Ngannou gets put away in the third.
Damn. I don't really know. I kind of need to watch this video you're talking about because I want to see that.
With Usyk, that fight happens, I think it's most likely a late TKO, 10th round, or a decision.
You think 10th round?
Yeah, I would be like 10th, 11th, 12th round, like late TKO.
Damn.
And not even a total knockout, but a TKO.
Damn.
That's my prediction that early. Unless, again, we see crazy shit in the Ngannou fight.
Yeah.
Damn, that weed is hitting. Damn.
I want to see this real quick, dude. Because if it's as bad as you guys are saying.
Me pulling up that video on the Ngannou training.
Yeah.
If I could show the video on screen in editing, I'll put it up for everybody as well while you're looking at it. But
oh, here we go. You talking about the footage? Jesus Christ.
yeah, you have to turn that down.
Fucking. Is this the one with Mike Tyson? You're talking about?
I believe so. Yeah, it was here in Vegas.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Kind of interesting that Mike Tyson's took Francis under his wing like this.
Yeah,
What do you
Fury
think
was
of
a little butthurt about that. He was like, that's the guy I'm named after. And
Yeah.
see him in my opponent's corner
Yeah.
makes me sad.
It's got to feel some type of way.
Right.
But also, I feel like Mike and Francis kind of had relationship like that.
They've
since
had a
he's been on
bonding.
the
I mean, Tyson
podcast.
actually promised he'd do this or not promised, but verbalized that he would do this for Francis like over 4 years ago when they first met.
It just looks real rudimentary. It just is what it looks like, dog. It's just like it just doesn't look any serious. I would say his pad work here.
No, it
Just looks playful, like way too playful. It's just like he's just
that
going through
triple
the
jab
motions,
is like
Yeah.
really ugly, dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even. It's more like it looks like he's doing this instead of
Yeah.
having his elbow up high
Yep.
and straight. You know what I mean? He should be snapping.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't know what we putting on.
It
pattern.
looks like so slow though. Like it doesn't look like he's even trying to put any kind of pace on it whatsoever. Like the way he's punching, he's like going through the motion more.
Yeah, it's almost like he's form concentrating. Like,
Yeah.
look how slow that is, dude.
Yeah. And we've seen Francis have some wicked speed at times, so I don't know how much I'm putting into this. Who's his coach there? Is that Mike?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know if you could fight in Mike's style with a body style like that.
I don't know. Maybe against someone like Fury, because Fury's so much bigger, and Mike was used to fighting guys that were bigger.
Yeah,
'Cause
maybe.
Fury's 6'9". I mean, he's one of the few guys that's gonna make Ngannou look small in there.
But he really doesn't when you see them like go like face to face, like not like towers over him or anything. Like although he's like 6'9", like Francis has to be like 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, but it'll look different once it's in the boxing ring and that jab of Fury starts
yeah, for
coming out.
sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And is extending
Mhm.
and that whole shit.
I just meant like the frame because like going into it, I thought Francis was a lot smaller than Tyson, but Francis is a big motherfucker.
Francis is very large.
So I don't know.
Tyson's smaller than you think he is. Like when I met him, I was shocked.
Oh, Mike Tyson?
Yeah.
He's only like 5'10", right?
Yeah, he's like and not a tall 5'10". Like he was barely taller than me. I was
Yeah.
like, God damn, I can't believe you're fighting these monsters, dude.
Well, yeah, think about really what was his biggest, like, undoing of his career is when he fought fucking the longest fucking motherfucker in the world. What's his name? Lennox Lewis.
Lennox, yeah.
Lennox is fucking 6'7", fucking popping the jab out on Mike, who's like 5'10". It's like, well, what do you expect's gonna happen?
So I think he would have some insights where, like, normally, I mean, Francis is what, 6'3"?
Yeah, I
But
think
with
he's like
Tyson,
6'3", 6'4".
Fury clocking in, not to be confusing, Fury being 6'9".
Yeah.
We'll see, man. It should be interesting. We'll talk more about that as it rolls up. But
Yeah.
what do you think about Conor McGregor shifting into MMA recently? Doing a big interview recently where he's still stating he's fighting Michael Chandler next. Are we taking
Yeah.
any of this seriously at this point?
I don't know. After I believed it a couple weeks, like it was about a month ago. Remember when we talked about how the Fight Pass had, that date set for that date and shit. But then after they just laid out the whole rest of the like winter block of fights, and that fight wasn't on there, I don't necessarily know how much like stock I really put into that happening anymore. Because that was the big thing, right? Remember, it was going to be the December 29th card. They were
Mhm.
going to close the year off, and they end up putting together still a great card for the 29th, but that was supposed to be the headliner. Now they switched it to Leon and Colby, which is still fucking. We've been waiting to see that anyways.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, he said he went on Mirror Fighting, and on the
Mhm.
comeback he says it's still en route and he's still hoping for December. Which
So-
there's no way they're gonna water down a pay-per-view now, which has, like, say, Colby
Yeah.
and Leon as a headliner by throwing Conor on it. It wastes McGregor.
Well, not only that, you got to think there isn't that the same one that also has Patty and Tony Ferguson,
Yeah.
also has Wonder Boy and Shavkat.
Yeah,
So
they're not
it's like-
putting McGregor on that card. That's what I'm saying.
Because you know that if they did, the money's getting ran up on the purse side of things. Because Connor's not taking anything less than like 10 mil.
He says he's still fighting Chandler. Then he tried to talk some shit, saying Chandler needs to sit down and shut up and wait. I don't know. I'm kind of, dude. Any longtime listener to the show knows we love Conor McGregor on here. I'm getting sick of this bullshit, dude.
So
Like, the shtick's getting old.
yeah,
Like, if you're not gonna fight, just be like, I'm not gonna fight.
here's one question I have for you though. So there's been some stuff come out since Chris Weidman had his last fight that says that he re-broke his leg, the same one that he broke in the fight against Uriah Hall. Obviously not to the level in which he did the first time. But do you think Conor maybe saw that and was like, all right, maybe I do need to take a little bit more time because I'm not going to go in there and go out like that. Like, I went out like that already, and, like, what happened, happened. But, like, one thing I'm not going to do is step in that octagon until I know and I trust that, like, this shit is fully healed. Because that's one thing that everyone is leaving out of this whole idea. Everyone keeps talking, it's the steroids, it's the drug pool, it's the this, it's the that, it's the, all that. What if he is in the middle of training and he's like, man, I fucking want to fight, but like, I throw kicks and I fucking feel it for 2 days.
That's
You know
true.
what I
Nobody
mean?
has said that. Conor could
Nobody
still be
brings
hurting,
that
and
up.
that could be why he's not getting off of what he's supposed to be on. Because what do you think? He's just telling USADA, no, I'm going to keep taking steroids. Fuck you.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any. He's telling the UFC, no, I'm not going to stop.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're implying.
Yeah.
He just loves that juice so much.
And that could not even be what's happening. It could just, I'm telling you, man, I think it's the one thing no one's talking about is like he had a compound fracture of his leg fucking, what, 18 months ago now, almost 2 years now. Like, that's not something at any age, especially at the backside of your prime, that you just like get over real quick and come back and everything's great. It is like, look at any major sport athlete that have compound fractures like that,
Yeah.
and tell me how many of them have come back and been great after. 'Cause there's not fucking a lot. Like, you can go down the list. It's ended so many careers, whether it's fighting, whether it's, football, basketball, baseball, all the different fucking sports. A compound fracture of any major bone is not just going to be like,
Mm-mm.
oh, we're back at it and we're still the best in the world. Like, I think because I think this is his last fight too. Like, a lot of people aren't talking about that too. It's like, I think Michael Chandler's his last fight. I think he's gonna go off if he beats Chandler. I don't really see, like, what Like, you're gonna go make another run for the belt? Like,
Oh,
there's no
God.
fucking way, dude. Like,
Well, he's
so
just still
I think he
talking
wants to go
about
out on
Diaz.
top. Well, I think in the UFC at least, he can go box Diaz at this point. That makes more sense to me than anything. I don't know. Nate kind of fucked his whole stock up to me with that fight against Jake Paul. So I don't really.
You know, we've never really talked about that.
Yeah, like I don't really
Well,
want
let's finish. Let's talk about that for a second. Shit, I love Nate. Nate's like one of my favorite fighters, and I feel so like betrayed by that fight.
Yeah, that fight fucked it all up for me.
Like, absolutely, I don't see Nate the same. I feel like you know, talk about selling wolf tickets.
Yeah.
How about them wolf tickets that you've been boxing with all these top dogs, and you can box this whole time? Motherfucker couldn't throw a jab, and I don't want to hear this. I was injured bullshit. Stop. You say it every fucking fight. You can only say that shit so many times.
Yeah, and also like, what the fuck was his like even delivery? Like
I don't even
that
know.
little sideways walk thing he was doing, like it was like kind of like a Philly shell, but it was like almost like he like had slipped a disc also. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't know what the fuck he was doing.
I've never been so let down, dude.
Yeah, it was even like because I was confused. Was like, okay, why is he doing that when he doesn't even strike like that in MMA? When have you ever seen Nate Diaz do that shit in MMA where he like
Never.
leans over and like can't stand up straight? Like, if anything, he's always been someone who has like a super high stance and like pops his jab like that way.
Right.
But the way that he was doing it in that fight, I was just like, who the fuck is this guy?
He
Like,
couldn't
you
throw
know?
a 1-2-3 to save his ass.
No. And when he did, they were just so close and so inconsequential with like the power at which he threw them. Like, it made no sense.
I don't want to hear that. I was injured shit either. I'm like, maybe he was, dude. But at some point, you
Then
have
don't
to fucking
fight.
not fight.
Yeah.
You can't come out and do that because you just fucked. I'm never gonna believe you're a good boxer ever again, bro.
Nope.
Like all these years, dude. Andre Ward.
Yeah.
I did so many rounds with Andre Ward. Motherfucker, now we get to use your own term, your own brother's term against you. You've been selling wolf tickets this whole time with that bullshit.
Yeah.
So it's humiliating, man.
Yeah. It was
Jake
rough.
Paul, dude.
It's
How do you do
terrible.
that shit? Who wants to see him fight Conor now?
Speaking of that,
Who? I don't know.
let's just go down this whole road now. Just
Shit.
let's get all these out of the way because actually we do have next weekend one of those little misfit boxing things going on, and KSI is fighting Tommy Fury, and then Logan Paul's boxing Dylan Dennis.
Yeah, Dylan Dennis, supposedly. Conor was talking about that. It transcends nice because in the same interview, they asked him about that because Dylan Dennis is supposed to train with Conor McGregor for this.
Yeah.
But the excuse for it not happening, because it didn't happen,
Yeah.
is that Dennis had a baby. Don't know how that keeps you from training with Conor specifically and still taking the fight and training with somebody else. What the fuck ever. So there's two questions here. Does Dylan Dennis, A, make it to the fight, or will it be Platinum Mike Perry? And B, does he stand a prayer of winning?
I think if it's Mike Perry, it's gonna be a long night for Logan Paul. I if I'm Logan Paul, I'm begging and hoping fucking Dylan Dennis comes to the fight because he don't want to box Mike Perry. Mike Perry will fuck him up
100%.
like 100%.
You don't want that smoke.
100%.
I can't even believe he's the backup. Why would you even do that? Because these guys are pussies. Perry's a warrior.
Yeah.
He's proven that shit. I don't know, dude. Dylan Dennis couldn't throw a punch in mixed martial arts to save his ass last time we saw him in Bellator. I would
Yeah.
hold that my old, untrained, since fucking 20 years ago ass could give him a run for his money with those kind of punches. You'd probably fucking murder him.
I don't know, dog.
I'm just saying, unless he's been doing some training
Yeah.
that we're unaware of
Yeah.
all this time, maybe he'll come out and surprise us. But he's done nothing but kind of show us that he doesn't give a fuck about everything.
Yeah.
I will give him props on his trolling. He's murdered Logan in the fucking online department to the point where
Oh,
they're
yeah.
actually suing him like some fucking bitches. Like
Yeah.
Logan Paul and his, like, you are a fucking
Yeah.
pussy, bro.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And your girl's a hoe. Like, Jesus, man. Weinstein turned that shit out, apparently. Like, god damn, dude.
Yeah, dude, that's good.
Like, I'm just saying. Like, damn, have some standards, bro.
Yeah, so what happens if Dennis wins?
I'll give him props. I will show him mad respect. You beat a fucking one of these idiot Paul brothers, which nobody can seem to fucking do.
Yeah,
And he'll talk an interesting load of shit. Like, Dennis is great at shit talking. People don't like him, dude. He plays that troll shit quite well. It's just most of the time he's annoying you, and you're
Yeah.
like, fuck him.
hmm So how do you feel about the main event?
Tommy Fury should beat this dude pretty handily, I would imagine.
I think it's only 4 rounds.
That's a little silly, but I don't know. It's got to be at least 6 for Fury.
Yeah, it might only be 6 actually. I don't know. It's either 4 or 6, but yeah.
But KSI's, I mean, he seems
And
to be.
KSI's making him like hella cut down in weight.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not at the.
I think it's at like 184 or something like that. He said. I don't know. They were shit talking each other at that press conference that lasted like 10 minutes before they all fell apart. But yeah, KSI was talking about you better make weight, and he's like, yeah, of course, because you're trying to dehydrate me, and because you think you're good enough to beat me if I'm dehydrated, but I'll cut even more weight and I'll still beat you.
No, we got a 180-pound fight with no rehydration clause.
Yeah, Fury doesn't fight 185.
No,
or
it's going to be
180.
185 if KSI. Remember.
Yeah, fucking Tommy.
Okay, it's
fights at 200.
183 pounds.
Yeah, Tommy fights is normally at 200. He fights at fucking cruiserweight.
I don't know about these things. Tommy better beat this fool. He can't beat the other one and then lose to fucking KSI.
Oh,
for
dude,
fuck's
right?
sake, dude.
What if KSI hits him with a nasty elbow like his last guy?
He did. That was a nasty elbow.
That shit is funny.
I don't know, dude. What do you think of these things? Do you think they're going to keep going? Like, if KSI loses, does Misfits keep going?
You know what I was hearing though? They were talking that actually Logan Paul was talking about. He was on Ariel and he was talking about with this WWE and UFC merger that technically he could fight in the UFC now if he wanted to.
No.
He's like, there's a pathway for me to get a UFC fight like I've been planning on. I was like, whoa. I never thought about it that way, I guess. Because he's one of the people that they would do some shit like that. Because there's not very many guys that there's ever really, like, when you really, let's talk about that for a minute, actually. So now, officially, the merger has happened. The WWE is now merged with the UFC. Vince McMahon's the chairman of both companies now. He fucking has the final say in the UFC's plans and the WWE's plans. Dana White moves up to, isn't it like COO or some bullshit? What's his new title?
Dana White's president now.
Oh, yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry. He was president. Now he's CEO.
CEO.
Chief Executive Officer.
So like everyone kind of moves up the ladder. There's all this different power struggle now, but the question becomes, will this be a mutually beneficial like thing when it comes to the rosters? Like I think in my head I would probably see a lot more people maybe that are on the back end that are big UFC stars make appearances in WWE.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we're going to see next to any people in the WWE try to make the transition to the UFC.
Yeah, 6-round cruiserweight match. Just to be clear on
6 rounds. Yeah.
6 rounds.
But
I don't see too many people from the UFC trying to get into WWE, but the other way around, yeah.
Yeah. Like
I mean, WWE trying to
Other
get
way,
into
yeah.
the UFC. Fuck, too many acronyms here.
yeah.
I don't know.
But
I still think that the UFC is going to get crippled by this lawsuit. I think they're going to get fucked.
yeah, but even if they do, that's not really crippling them anymore. They're fucking worth $40 million because they're merged, are all under one banner now. Fucking when it comes to their financials and their financial backing, so that big hit turns into let's just cut some guys, save money for a couple years, and we'll be back on track.
I don't know. Here's a question: Is these guys? In my opinion, I already know the answer. Is the UFC fucking up the state of mixed martial arts?
I mean,
On a low-level basis, week in and week out, with their decisions, with their fight cards, and their overall direction? Or are they doing beneficial things for the sport to helping it grow and get bigger?
see, this is a tough question because I think it's kind of two-part. I think there's two ways to look at it, right? The way you're kind of explaining, I get what you're saying in the way of like they're messing with maybe the fighter side, like whether it's fighter relations, fighter pay, all the shit that's kind of been boiling over with them in the roster. I'm good for now. that's been boiling over with them in the roster from now,
Yeah.
like these last couple months or years now. But in a way, as much as they have fucked up relations with them and the fighters, the thing the UFC's done the best for the sport though is to continuously make the sport bigger. And like it's just kind of like that's just in a it's just what it is and it sucks.
I see what you're saying over the years, but I don't think the UFC makes the sport bigger anymore. I don't think we get viewership statistics from ESPN Plus because it's a private subscription service. It's not even like, I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have to make their stats public for anybody. So we don't know. How many people you think are tuning in to last week's fucking fight card?
Well, that's the thing.
What
That's
are they
where I
getting
agree
from
with you.
viewership? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? We used to get those numbers. Are you telling me 500,000 people tuned in to watch that shit? I cry, no fucking way.
Well, it's like, did you see Dana said that the fucking Power Slap video game got 350 million downloads? That's
Yes.
technically the most ever.
Yeah. According to
Making the
Dana
highest
White, the Power
highest-
Slap game is the most successful video game
of all time.
of all time.
Yeah.
Period.
But that's kind of the same motto they kind of have with the whole ESPN thing. It's like, well, it was Israel Adesanya sold 2 million pay-per-views. You know what I mean? Like it's, shit like that where they're kind of
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
They're full of shit. Dana lies all the time. But look at the product. Look at next week's card.
yeah,
It's so shitty. We're not even talking about it this week.
yeah.
Like we're acting like there's not a fight.
And
There's
it's no fucking diss on the fighters though. It's
no Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green's an okay fight.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, they're headlining some shit at what, the Apex?
Yeah.
I mean, that gives you the answer right there. The UFC is still putting on cards at the Apex at the end of 2023. Only sport now that's currently like doing that.
Yeah.
It's still using their COVID procedures,
Mm-hmm.
but only just so they save money and can meet the ESPN quota.
And it's not even really COVID procedures. They're just.
But that's the
crowd.
origin. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it
yeah,
is. Like,
yeah.
we got the Apex because of COVID.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
now it's 3 years later, and we're still doing the Apex with no crowd.
It almost
unless
feels
you're
like
Mark
almost-
Zuckerberg.
it almost feels like the Apex fights are like watching the Ultimate Fighter, and then the pay-per-views are like, oh, now these guys are grown up. You saw them on the Apex.
Right.
Now they're in the fucking main event. That's really what these fucking Apex fights feel like. Because when you really watch them, and there's like, and it's no, like I said again, it's no knock on the fighters because anybody will take any opportunity given, and I don't blame Grant Dawson or Bobby Green ever being like, "Do you guys want to be the main event?" And be like, "What? No, I don't want to be the main event of a card." Like, I get their point of view, but the UFC is also kind of using them in a way because it's like we kind of need to, we kind of got a lull in matchmaking this week, so let's throw one in the Apex with some guys who we know are like dogs, and they're just gonna have a dog fight, and it's gonna like build some buzz online, but not a lot of people are gonna watch it because that's what is most likely going to happen this weekend. Because Bobby Green and Grant Dawson are two like they're dogs. They get in fights and they're down to go. And a 5-round fight, look, probably be a great fight.
Probably.
But the fact is that based on how the UFC is promoted themselves, not a lot of people are going to watch that. They're now doing this thing where they're almost like an episodic like television show now at this point where it's like, ooh, these fight nights are not going to be as good as they used to be. They're going to be the build up and the pay-per-view every month so more people buy it or something. But even the pay-per-views aren't even stacked as like they used to. Like it's just oversaturation.
It is oversaturation, and I don't think their decisions are helping anybody but themselves. I mean, let's add we talked about Francis Ngannou earlier, and this ties in directly with the UFC. What about his appearance on Joe Rogan? He sure let a lot of information out, didn't he?
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear what he had to say. So let's just kind of go back. We all kind of watched the whole saga unfold in front of us, but there was all these weird clauses that people kept talking about in the media, like that
Francis's contract.
Yeah, about Francis' contract, and he actually shed a lot of light on that. So one thing I didn't know is, and I'd imagine a lot of people don't know either. When you fight in the UFC, like your contract has a sunset date, but also it doesn't matter how many fights you have, if you ever turn down a fight, whether you're healthy or injured, you get 6 months added onto your contract every single time.
Think
So
about that.
so like for these guys who are trying to fight their deals out, they have to fight because if they don't take them, their just contract gets extended, gets extended, gets extended. And for people that don't know that, well, why would that be a big deal? You know, they get a longer contract. No, the UFC really only does that so they have the negotiation period when you know actually end up fighting out your contract. They want that 6 months, so they'll add another 6 months onto your contract just because that'll be a negotiating period, even if you fight your contract out. So like this whole idea that you can just fight your contract out and then you're a free man, go fight in Bellator one or wherever else is not like it's not like what people on the outside really think it is. And I thought Francis took so much like unnecessary, even from myself at times, some unnecessarily like hate and like just people saying fucked up shit online like yo
Yeah.
he's ducking John Jones and blah blah all this. But when it comes down to it, like these contracts that he and a lot of these big fighters are in are so like locked in, like where you're an asset of the UFC and there's really no other option,
Hmm.
that he was villainized because he was trying to break through it. You know what I mean? Because not only do you get those 6 month add-ons, but then if you're the champion, you get a whole year added on too. So
Jeez.
yeah, it's
I
crazy.
mean, these contracts were bad enough that a federal judge has okayed a class action certification against the UFC. And during that, he reviewed all of their contracts and issued statements outright saying that they were atrocious,
Yeah.
terrible, horrible. And like, this is the judges about to hear their fucking case. Like, it doesn't look good for them as far as the contracts go. And it doesn't matter how big the company is.
Yeah.
When a judge makes rulings on like that and does injunctions, they will have to change their contracts to whatever the judges say, which could really change the sport significantly because I don't know. I thought Francis was I thought he did a very good job of explaining his position and the contracts in ways that we could all understand. And it bums me out that that particular shit doesn't seem to be getting a big play on
Yeah.
the MMA websites.
Mm-mm.
Like MMA Fighting, for instance, still wants to tell us what Matt Brown said about Sean Strickland's title defense or some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or what Matt Brown said about this or that because they have a podcast on their channel with Matt Brown on it.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell us other things that happen on JRE, but for some reason, I'm not seeing this Francis Ngannou contract situation make a lot of news when he got a lot of hate on these websites.
Well,
They sure covered it when Daniel Cormier said he was making a mistake, or when O'Malley said it was stupid, and blah, blah, blah.
yeah. Well, and then also something that um, I thought was kind of peculiar was like Joe really didn't have much to say back. He just kind of was more giving him the floor to kind of explain his thing and not really having any kind of pushback. Like he would just kind of more ask a question and let Francis, give like a long-winded answer, and then he would just move on and then just move on. So like even then, like like I'm not saying Joe is like trying to do anything weird because he wouldn't do that because he's pretty good at being unbiased as like an interviewer, but also like that's also the company he works for. You know what I mean? And when a lot of these like contract negotiations and stuff go out, he's usually plays like the neutral ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
mean, he still works for the UFC, and he's personal friends
yeah,
with the now CEO.
yeah.
I mean, he's not going to just be like, oh, you're right, fuck the UFC.
Hmm. But he also did talk about how like the deal he signed was fucking like historic, like because it is. And he also did go a lot into that whole saga of like those dinners he went into Dana White and Hunter Campbell and all the negotiations and what he actually wanted in his deal versus what they were putting out in the media. Um, and a lot of it made a lot of sense. But you know what it really seemed to me was the old like overall kind of theme was I think Francis was wanted a contract like he had this era's pay with the like 2000 to 2011 eras rules. Like
Like
you
the
know what I mean?
Fertitas.
Yeah, like he wanted the Fertitas rules with the WME pay. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I don't think that's that crazy because he was talking about that right before they did the Crypto.com deal. He got a $1 million offer to get sponsored by a crypto wallet,
Yes.
and that's one thing that was part of why he was having a hard time negotiating with the UFC, because he told Hunter Campbell basically, he's like, dude, I'm not missing out on $1 million because you guys, and then like
Yeah, because
told
you guys got a deal that I get nothing from.
yeah, so that was also another like big spat between them as well.
I don't think any reasonable person, unless you just suck on the UFC's nutsack, can justify any of their behavior in this. There's no reason to tie fighters up in these massive contracts that isn't self-serving.
Yeah,
There's no reason not to offer Ngannou a bunch of money to fight John Jones, to give him a 1, 2, or 3 fight deal. Because if he succeeds and you succeed and everything is a success, you should be able to make another deal after that.
well, that's what he said also.
I mean, for fuck's sake.
he said that he was ready to sign a $10 million deal for 3 fights. It was gonna be, but this is what he told them. This is what stopped them from doing it. He said, I want no additions, so no sunset clause, no 6 months, no negotiating period. I want $10 million, 3 fights, John Jones rematch, Stipe, and then we'll renegotiate. And they wouldn't do it.
How is any of that unreasonable?
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Boxing is now doing that type of shit. These motherfuckers bid per fight. Bunch of fucking promoters get together.
purse
If people
bids.
listening don't really understand the really simplified term, bunch of people get together and have like almost an auction
Yeah.
where they're bidding to who gets the fucking purse, and then
Yeah.
the fighters and everybody's like, okay, cool, that's the purse.
Yep.
They agree on the split, the whole fucking thing, and then they go out. And if it's a bigger fight with bigger stars, the numbers go up.
Yep.
If one promoter really wants it, they're going to offer fucking even more.
Yeah.
And sometimes, even after that, it falls apart and it goes back to a bid. And prior to the bids, they have a negotiating period.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't fucking both sides agree, then that's what happens. And the market basically sets the price on that.
Yeah.
And guess what? It works fairly decently. There's no reason for the UFC to do any of this shit. I'm tired of going on MMA websites and you go down in the comment section, everybody just fucking sucks their dick.
Yeah.
And you go on Twitter and everybody's like, oh, Francis is retarded, fuck him, oh, he can't beat shit. All this shit, when that's not what the conversation should be.
Yeah.
There's no justifying any of these guys signing 8-fight deals, all this fucking bullshit. They give the rights away to video games, all this shit in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
It's absurd. I'm tired of it. I think if it's not clear by now, I think, in my opinion, the UFC is just fucking up the sport of MMA at this point. Not to the point where they're like killing it,
Yeah.
but I don't think they're doing anybody any favors
There's
anywhere.
no justice at all. Yeah.
Even their biggest stars like Conor is held back and doesn't get more money. Conor should be taking fights in bare knuckle right now.
Yeah.
Conor should go fight fucking Mike Perry in bare knuckle. If he wasn't tied up in some bullshit contract, he'd be able to do that. Or if the UFC had any type of fucking leeway, they do a co-promotion with the BKFC.
Well, that's
I'm just
what
saying as an
Francis said,
example.
too.
You know what
Francis
I
said he'll still fight John. He'll co-promote it with the fucking PFL and UFC.
Yeah, they don't
And
wanna
then
do
Joe Rogan told him flat out, he's like, they'd never do that.
Hmm.
And he was like, why do you think that? And he basically, what we've said in the past is like, because if you, Francis Ngannou, came in, knocked John Jones out, held the UFC championship over your head, and then scheduled a PFL fight the next day, they would never let that happen.
And because they're more not worried about the sport of MMA,
Yeah.
they're more worried about
the
the
asset
UFC.
of the UFC. Yeah.
Yeah, the money-making asset. So fuck them. I'll still watch. I haven't bought a pay-per-view in a
Fuck
grip.
it. I'll still
I don't
watch.
even have a fucking,
I'll tell you what though, they have announced some bangers there in the year. These last couple cards are going to be
Yeah, let's
good.
go out with announcing the cards and what we think, and then that'll be the end of the show.
This one we'll probably talk about in a couple weeks, but this October card is going to be real good. You got, Islam and Oliveira 2.
Islam versus Oliveira 2. You're talking about the Abu Dhabi card.
Yeah.
What's the co-main on that shit? Because I don't know about that fight, man. I don't know if we're going to see much of a difference that we've
You don't think so?
already seen in that Islam Oliveira fight.
I don't know. I thought a different Oliveira than we normally see showed up that night, and I don't know. I hate
that
to
right?
be like the had an off night guy, but that's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? Like the fact that he's back here and has a chance to do it again is, I think, what he's got to focus on the most. Like whether he wins or loses. Oh yeah, that's where Khamzat and Costa are fighting too, that's a fucking banger.
Yeah, I'm more interested in that fight than I am the Oliveira. I mean, I'm rooting for Oliveira. I
Yeah.
like that kid. I'd like him to win. But Chimaev versus Costa will tell us a lot about Khamzat Chimaev.
Yeah, we'll really be able to see what he looks like in middleweight also.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and you also got Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker on that one too. That's a pretty good fight
That's
for
pretty
light
lit.
heavyweight. I don't really care about
Of
that.
course, we got John Jones versus Stipe
John
happening
Jones, Stipe,
at MSG. That's a banger.
and then oh yeah, fucking they announced Yuri Prochazka and fucking Alex Pereira for the vacant 205 title, which is fucking a banger of all bangers. That's gonna be that. I'm surprised they stacked those two fights on there. That's gonna be a fucking great fight.
Yeah, that fight's got me pretty excited there. I like him coming right back,
Mhm.
not dealing with any of these interim belt holders that we had for a moment and just fuck it right into Pereira.
Yeah.
I like it even better.
Then Jessica Andrade, Mackenzie Dern's on there. That's a fucking pretty good fight as well. I think Andrade will really test Mackenzie.
Mm-hmm.
Then going in to
I mean,
end
we
the
had
years.
Edwards versus Covington finally signed. What took so long here? I mean, was Edwards really that against fighting Covington? And I don't believe his media shtick. Oh, I don't like him. I mean, was he that concerned with
Yeah, I don't
losing the
know.
title here?
I don't know.
I'm not trying to say he's a pussy or anything. I'm just saying, there's when you know you can.
But here's the
You know, he was talking
interesting
about
thing.
fucking Masvidal, bro.
Yeah, but here's the interesting thing is the two performances in which Leon put on against Kamaru Usman was like I don't know if Colby can beat Leon, to be honest. Like, yeah, Colby puts a pretty good pace and stuff on, but Leon neutralized everything that Kamaru was good at. And I feel like Kamaru and Colby are very similar in like styles. I think obviously, there's a little bit more dexterity and stuff like that when you talk about Colby Covington. He does throws like a little bit like better kicks and stuff like that. But I don't know. It seems like Leon has mastered how to fight that style of fighter, is what I'm saying.
See, I see it a little bit differently. I think that when Colby and Kumaro fought, they looked similar.
Yeah.
And I think that Usman just ever so slightly had his number. And I think that those two fights were almost the
was like the same
pinnacle
thing.
of Usman's career in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that after a certain time, I mean, he's 35 going on 36. I just feel that Edwards has his number kind of in the way that he managed to have Covington's number, but I don't think that MMA math adds up to Usman beating Covington. In fact, I think that Covington has advantages over, Edwards over Edwards that Usman didn't have, and I think he gets the victory here pretty handily in a decision.
Yeah.
Like I think he's going to put it on him. I would be shocked. I'll give Edwards mad respect if I'm wrong, and I don't think he sucks or anything.
Yeah.
I just think he came in against Usman at the right time when Usman had already peaked, was on the decline, and then he hit that decline when it hit. So he got knocked out, and then he came back, and he was not the fucking same.
No.
I just don't think that's the same Usman like we saw against Colby Covington that we saw in that second Edwards fight.
Mm-hmm. I could somewhat see that, but my only thing is I think also Leon does carry a pretty solid amount of power that Colby, I don't know if he can handle it.
And Colby hasn't had the wear and tear that Usman was going either. Usman put in a lot more fights, I do believe, here in the last few years than Covington has.
Yeah.
Covington hasn't fought since then.
He hasn't fought in a grip, yeah.
So I'm interested. We'll see. What else is on that card?
And then you got Pantoja having his first title defense against Brandon Royval. That's a big fight, I'd
That's
say.
a big fight, sir.
And then you got Shavkat versus Stephen Thompson.
Now, Stephen Thompson wasn't going to take that fight,
Yeah, I
But
heard.
then you see how the UFC fucking bullied him into taking that? That's my take on this.
Yeah, I didn't really see the end part of it.
Yeah, maybe bullied is the wrong word. Fucked him over into taking it. Because, like, what happened was his last fight was canceled because old boy didn't make weight, right?
Yeah.
And Stephen Thompson says, no, despite showing up on the scale and making weight, Stephen Thompson doesn't get paid. Okay? He gets no fucking money for that fight and for that fight camp.
Really?
And then the UFC says, fight Shavkat. And he's like, no, I don't want to fight this dude. He's not, he's like, I'm not down with that for whatever reason. And then, according to basically what Stephen Thompson said, the UFC came back and said, we'll double your pay to fight him. But what they're not really doubling his pay. They're giving him his back pay for the show money that he already earned. Just saying, okay, we'll go ahead and give you what we already owe you. Tack it onto this one if you fight him. And apparently he agreed to that. And then he came out and kind of spun it that he's getting paid double. And then in the interview, he kind of was actually like, well, they said they'll give me my back pay.
Well,
And
yeah,
so that's my take on it, is the UFC's.
That's interesting that you say that because that's something Francis talked about during his interview too.
Really?
He said that one thing that Hunter Campbell offered him if he'd signed the deal is to back pay him for all his fights that were main events in the UFC at that like price over what he was already paid. So
Mhm.
like they would pay him like $6 million, $7 million, something like that, in back pay if he signed the contract.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then, man, there's a lot of good fights on this fucking card, dude. Then you got Tony Ferguson, Paddy Pimblett, which I fucking as bad of a fight. I think Tony, like, I don't think Tony should be fighting the UFC anymore, but I'll give it to him. This is a pretty good fight.
Dude, Paddy Pimblett hasn't looked as good as the hype surrounding him has. Let's be honest. I like him. I'm kind of rooting for him, but Jared Gordon really put it on him.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I think they also saw Tony Ferguson get it put on him by Bobby Green a couple months back. And
Yeah.
I didn't
Ferguson's
really like that either.
Ferguson is the right name for Pimblett
Yeah.
to get a victory over and still get some little bit of shine while Ferguson's going out the door.
Yeah,
Not much shine, but
That's
a
what's
little
very
bit.
strange, dude.
Especially with the general MMA like community outside of the hardcores, the people that just they might have heard the name Tony Ferguson, but they might not realize he's on a 7 whatever fight losing streak.
Yeah.
They'll just be like, "Oh, that
They'd
dude
be like,
beat Tony."
damn, Patty beat Tony Ferguson.
Right. Us hardcore fans are like, "Yeah, of course he did, dude.
Yeah.
He got sacrificed."
Um,
But I'm still gonna watch it. I mean,
Yeah.
well,
and then I think this could be the fight of the night. Vicente Luque versus Ian Machado Gary.
yeah, that was just announced here recently too.
Yeah.
That's the fight right there.
That is the fight.
That's a great
sure.
test for Gary.
Yeah.
I mean,
for
he's
sure.
looked nothing but good.
Mhm.
He's come out and done the right stuff. That's a test there. Vincente Luque put it on him.
He fucking beat the fuck out of Neil Magny his last
Mhm.
fight.
He's a dog.
So yeah, I'm very curious to see how that fight goes because Vicente Luque doesn't have a boring fight in the UFC.
If the UFC was putting on, this is like the old cards the UFC used to put on, where they were just
Mhm.
stacked top to bottom, and the UFC used to brag about that.
Oh, and this is the one we were talking about that they were gonna put Conor on.
Oh yeah, they're not adding. That's what I mean. You can see right there, listening to that, everybody. They're not putting Conor McGregor into that mix.
Yeah,
There's-
no.
Nope.
Unless
I
like
promise you.
unless they're closing their doors fucking January 1st.
Right. If it's a fire sale, yeah. Come on. Oh, there's no way. Conor will headline a card of complete, absolute dog shit contender series guys locked into 12-12 contracts.
Yep.
They get absolutely no lick of any type of pay-per-view
And then
whatsoever.
one-
I guarantee it.
Yeah. And maybe they put like an Ian Gary fighting somebody who's like, you know, maybe in the top 10 and they're there and they're like,
Yeah.
look, you got Ian Gary and Conor.
One, maybe 2 prospects they're trying to get a little Conor
Yeah.
shine on, and that's it. They don't be
Yeah.
shit else, bro.
Yeah.
Guarantee it. And they'll find a way to raise the price by $5
hmm
for the Conor fight. They did that last time.
So I also I think this we can kind of close the show on this one.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to talk about, we've kind of talked about it a bit before, not really on the show, but it seems like from what everyone is saying, that Bellator is gonna close their doors sometime soon. And there was some talk of a merger with the PFL that fell out, but they have events scheduled coming all the way up. So like, how do you like feel like this is gonna go down?
I think from what I've been able to deduce just based on online information that I've looked into, I believe that Bellator is definitely for sale,
Yeah.
but I don't believe that they're anywhere close to shutting their doors because there's a difference. You can be for sale
Mm-hmm.
if someone comes along at the right price
Yeah.
and still put on events and do your shit, than just shutting your doors and then what?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
because they could put on, if they were really in that dire of straits, shutting the doors is ridiculous because you can still sell off your fighters. You can put on events at lower and lower costs until you're just milking it till there's nothing left.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of just shutting the doors and then like what?
Yeah.
Paying off these guys, letting them
Mm.
all go, sacrificing the little bit of money you got coming in.
Well, yeah. What we talked about before on the show is how they were going to sell their roster to PFL, and supposedly that.
Yeah,
fell
this
through.
merger that PFL was interested in possibly buying them and merging the two, which I thought could have been interesting.
Yeah.
Now, let's be honest, some of this reporting is coming from a fairly small podcaster.
Yeah.
who might have an inside track. That doesn't mean shit that he's small.
But-
I mean, he's bigger than this show, I think. Maybe.
I've seen a lot of
but-
people talk about it also.
I know they are for sale. I've seen that listed on other shit. I don't know about this thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I actually heard Joe Rogan talk about how Bellator is going to fall, is about to fall out. He was talking about it on his Fight Companion that they did for the last UFC pay-per-view, the one that was in, the one when Strickland beat Adesanya.
Mhm.
Because he did a Fight Companion, him and Eddie Bravo were talking, or not, I don't think it was Eddie Bravo. Whoever was on the Fight Companion at that time, he said that they were about to.
It was the
shut down.
redacted one.
What's
from
up?
Brendan Schaub.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he was on there.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I don't know, man.
I don't know. It could be. I mean, I don't
think-
wish them to go under, but I don't know. They just scheduled number 301. You think they shutter the doors at 300? I don't know.
Yeah.
Dude. Who knows?
That is interesting. Also, what really sucks is for all these fighters, like if they don't end up selling off their roster, like although they get that like free agency rub, there's also like guys who are prospects and maybe aren't really on the UFC's radar, PFL's radar, or One's radar, or whoever. That
They're not going to
aren't
go to the
gonna
UFC. The UFC is no longer interested in signing good fighters. They're interested in churning motherfuckers out of the
or anybody who's in
contender
Bellator.
series.
Like who have we seen go to Bellator and come back to the UFC?
Nobody. Michael
Nobody.
Chandler is one of the only Bellator fighters I can think of.
And they were so reluctant to sign Michael Chandler for
Yeah, they
years.
waited a long time. to
They
sign
waited
him.
until he was
over the hill by the
36
time
years
they
old.
fucking get him. Yeah.
They waited until Michael Chandler was 36 to sign him. Like, what are we talking about? Like, they don't, like, and that's what sucks. Because you know what? There is some great guys on the Bellator roster that I think could really fuck with the UFC's, like, structure of some of their weight class and rankings. Like, you're telling me that AJ McKee wouldn't come up to 145 in the UFC?
What about
And
the
put-
Nurmagomedov?
Or
fucking
yeah,
cousin over there,
Nurmagomedov's
too?
little brother. Yeah,
Yeah.
fucking. Even Ryan Bader, like you throw Ryan Bader in the mix at either light heavyweight right now with Ryan Bader, and it would be like
And he's still making. He's still got the heavyweight title over there, doesn't he?
yeah, Nemkov has the light heavyweight.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, I don't want to see him fold. And I think, if again, circling back to our conversation earlier, if the UFC was doing good for the sport and expanding the sport of MMA in general, then other companies should thrive. Like Bellator should be doing okay.
yeah.
They shouldn't be.
But also, I think if
They put on better events than the UFC a lot of the times. Their Apex, the UFC, compare a Bellator show to an Apex show.
you know what though, if I was the UFC, I would think about buying their fucking roster.
In the middle of this antitrust lawsuit, though.
Yeah, but you got to
Might
think
look shitty.
also. Think about what we were just talking about: the oversaturation and the dwindling like level of competition in the UFC. If you bring people in who already are established, like fighters, like
Like they did with
Leon
Strikeforce.
Edwards' brother,
Yeah.
who fought a couple weekends ago against, or even Johnny Elbin, the champion at fucking middleweight. You're telling me right now he
Elbin's
wouldn't
good.
come in and have a good fight against someone like a Strickland or Adesanya? Like, yeah, he would. He has a good chance of beating both of them. Like, there's just so many guys that they would inherit that would. Like, here's the thing: you don't have to bring in everybody. You know what I mean? If you inherit the roster, doesn't mean you could release people just like you release people on your normal roster. You know what I mean? And so if you don't want the UFC dropouts that you maybe have weird relations with, release them out into the fucking. Then they can go to PFL or One. But I think it would be a really good idea for the UFC to maybe think about purchasing their roster.
Well, based on the way that Dana White tells lies and the way that his attitude tends to be when he says shit like, who the fuck would want to buy Bellator, it probably means the UFC is about to close the deal on buying Bellator.
Yeah. Or, dude, Aaron Pico and fucking the UFC that'd be interesting, man. Fucking.
No, I like the roster.
Yeah.
I mean, MVP is in a bit of a contract situation right now, but he's included somewhere on there most likely.
I heard he's about to sign with the UFC
That'd be interesting.
because he's free of his contract from Bellator.
Yeah, he is. But, doesn't mean he might not resign. But
Yeah, that's
we'll
true.
see. We'll see. Anyways, we'll see what happens, man. Hopefully we get some news soon. I wish them continued success. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Good show.
Yep.
Thanks for
I think
listening,
that wraps
everybody.
it up for today.
Be sure to check out our website for Binoid and for discounts at the UFC store as well. Where is it at?
You can find everything at SWATMA.com, or you can head over there, click the gear button, buy a t-shirt, support the podcast, then head over to